Welcome back to another episode of E&Ftv. Today we are joined by a good friend of mine, David Goodman, who's Director of Sales over at Duetto. David, thanks very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Tom. Pleasure, and thank you for inviting me on too.
Perfect. All right, awesome. Well, what we usually do on the episodes is sort of go through people's backgrounds. We go through obviously how they discovered revenue management in the first place, and also delve a little bit deeper into their current role. So it'd be awesome to sort of go through that first off. So yeah, please do tell us about yourself.
Sure. I've been in hospitality for around 15 years now. The bulk of my experience is corporate sales, corporate account management, and I actually started at a hotel group called NH Hotels, working at a single property in Victoria, entry-level sales role, sales executive, looking after local accounts and SMEs. But I was really fortunate there that we had a very commercially savvy general manager, and a general manager that was really keen to progress the sales team, you know, almost a mentor type figure, to really look at how we can develop the team and how we can develop the individual as well. So I spent just over 2 years there, and I was fortunate enough to grow in that business. And you know, I grew into the cluster sales manager role. I ended up looking after corporate sales and account management for their 4 London properties, and also outbound sales into the 5-star properties in Madrid and Barcelona. I then moved into a franchise operator, so a hotel group operating mixed IHG, Accor and Choice franchises. And for me, I really wanted to understand what the brands could add to hotel owners and hotel operators, in particular their distribution capabilities and their ability to deliver customers into their properties, which I found really, really interesting. I then did something slightly different, and I moved into a service department company who were operating apart hotel concepts across London. And I really went there to build the corporate strategy. So I implemented TMC contracts. I also helped implement GDS distribution, because obviously if you want to bring corporate business into your property, you need to be working with the correct channels as well. So really interesting, something that I hadn't done before. I then moved to Travelodge, where I spent 4 years as key account director, again, managing the largest TMC relationships and the corporate accounts that sat underneath those. And I think something that all of those roles had in common is I worked with some really good revenue managers across each of those organizations. And the good revenue managers were those that, you know, spent their time to not only help me, but help the wider sales organization understand what the strategy of the business was, you know, how corporate sales and account management really fitted into that as well. So, you know, although I was working corporate sales and account management, I always had an interest in revenue management and how what we did fitted into the wider strategy of the business. I then moved to HRS, the German TMC, where I spent 2 years as Director of Hotel Solutions, heading up the Hotel Solutions team covering Northern Europe. And this was very much about building relationships with key suppliers in that Northern Europe market, really looking to educate the market on what HRS did, selling our core commercial products, and ultimately get the best hotels on board so our corporate customers could book those. I then moved into my current role at Duetto, which is very different to anything I've ever done before. But, you know, I'd wanted to move into travel technology for a couple of years, because for me, the future of hotels, you know, how we're going to drive this forward is travel technology and the software as a service model, for sure. I think, you know, over the next 5 or 10 years, we'll see this really start to become more relevant to properties, and it's really going to improve the way that they're working. I guess the added benefit for me was I had a keen interest in revenue management, and Duetto is a revenue management system. So it felt like a great opportunity.
No, definitely. It sounds like a good fit from your background and where your path was taking you. And thank goodness, I know I'm biased here, but thank goodness it's brought you to the revenue management world, I suppose. But obviously, listening to your background, it's interesting from, I suppose, a transition point of view. You know, you moving from TMC business, obviously very much sales, account management, that sort of thing, and then moving into a SaaS business with regards to revenue management. I can imagine that comes with a huge culture, dynamic change. How's that transition been?
I think it's been an unusual 6 months for everybody anyway. But starting a new role at this time in, you know, a new kind of sector of the industry, it's been very different. I think something that helped me very early on was the feedback that I got from my network, actually. And, you know, whenever you announce a new role on LinkedIn, you always get congratulations and people wishing you well and stuff like that. But I think, you know, the overwhelming feeling I got was just the sheer amount of people that reached out to me, people that I'd worked with previously, people that were Duetto customers that I obviously didn't know at that point were Duetto customers, not just talking about how good the technology is, but also what a nice company is to work with, you know, how supportive the people are, how good the customer success team were. So I think in those early days when, you know, you're a little bit nervous about starting a new role anyway, that really helped me, you know, get a good start. And I think like anybody who starts a new role, you want to get up to speed as quickly as possible. And there was two real key focuses for me. I wanted to grow my knowledge of revenue management and understanding, you know, what does a revenue manager do on a daily basis? And I also wanted to learn as quickly as possible the Duetto applications, because as a salesperson, I need to understand those inside out. So the first thing I did was start to contact existing customers. And the plan was, you know, to spend a day here, you know, a day a week with existing customers, working out what they do, working out their challenges, how they use Duetto. I think unfortunately for me, 5 weeks into the role, we all went into lockdown. So going to spend a day in the life of a revenue manager on property was not quite so easy. So I kind of changed that approach. And people were really generous with their time. So, you know, we had a lot of Zoom calls and we had a lot of telephone calls. People just talking to me about, you know, life before Duetto, life after Duetto, you know, how they worked in previous roles, how they worked with different systems, challenges that they faced. And I think something that really jumped out to me was just how varied a revenue manager's role is, from, you know, somebody managing an independent property to a cluster revenue manager potentially managing whole regions. It's a really varied role. And then the second part was obviously learning the Duetto system. And we got a great team at Duetto and they were really helpful. And I think the good thing is the Duetto system is really intuitive. So, you know, once you know the basics and you get in and start playing around, it's very easy to navigate through and stuff like that. So I think there's also a lot of similarities from previous roles that I've done. I'm still speaking to hotels. I'm still speaking to hoteliers, which is great. It's what I enjoy. It's what I've done for 15 years. But some of the main difference is the conversations I'm having are far broader than they've ever been before. You know, the role of a revenue manager or a director of revenue or a commercial leader is so multi-dimensional. They're looking after so many different things in their roles. So the conversations I'm having are far larger. And I think this is probably the most consultative sales approach I've ever seen from any of the businesses that I've worked in. The way that Duetto works with its prospects and its customers is really about understanding what they want to achieve, you know, the pain points that they have, any common objectives that they have. And it's about building a partnership and working together and making sure that Duetto is the right fit for them. And then probably the most interesting thing that I've found, and something that I've never found in previous roles before, was how companies and organizations were using technology, and in particular an RMS, as a vehicle for change, whether that be to change internal processes or behavior or even their commercial strategy. You know, implementing that technology and implementing a change management system at the same time was something I found really interesting.
It's interesting because with regards to the industry, or the revenue management industry, if you like, it's incredibly supportive for anybody coming in who shows genuine interest and genuine, I suppose, passion to learn. They are very accepting. You know, they will just sort of give you all the information. I remember when I first started in sort of this revenue management world and trying to understand what it is, I did exactly what you did. I literally started contacting people, sitting down with them. Granted, I had an opportunity to sit down with them face to face, but I would just pick their brain for hours and we would just talk and talk and talk. And as you say, you know, talking to somebody from either a single property or a clustered environment or a holiday business, whatever it is, all these different ways of working, the different propositions, the different products, and so on and so forth. The fundamentals are still the same, but the product, the proposition, the strategy, all this sort of stuff is massively different. And to learn how these different environments and these different ways of working work, it's incredibly valuable for anybody going into this industry. And as I say, if you've got that genuine interest and that genuine passion to learn about what they do, they will just absolutely bring you in, accept you, and put you in contact with all these different people. They are, again, I know I'm biased, but they are brilliant. They're absolutely brilliant. So no, in terms of, I suppose, your view, coming from obviously a business like Duetto, coming from your, I suppose, point of view, I guess, what does a revenue manager look like you in terms of the revenue manager, but also the RMS system? What do you see? What do you see that person being?
Well, I think that's a relevant question right now, and I think there's a lot of organisations that are asking that question. Not only that, but what is the role of a revenue manager, and what is the role of a revenue management system in the current climate, and as the market develops over the next couple of years, because there is so much unknown that's happening. I think for me, the role of the revenue manager and an RMS is more relevant than it's ever been before. I think it's going to change slightly. I think now is the time of the revenue strategist, somebody who is absolutely at the heart of every business, making those strong commercial decisions that's really going to drive that business forward. And I think hotels are facing the toughest of times at the moment, hopefully, times that we'll never see again across our industry. And I think the role will actually grow. I think because revenue managers are asked to be doing a lot more with less resource than they've ever had before. Teams are on furlough, departments are on furlough, people are unfortunately being made redundant. So not only are they after doing more work in their revenue management role, I think the need for cross collaboration, working more closely with sales, working more closely with operations, getting involved on that so everybody's working towards the same strategy is really important. And if I think back to my days on property, which feel like a long time ago, I have to say, but the revenue managers, the best revenue managers then were the revenue managers who come in and they led the morning meeting, and everybody saw them as the captain of the ship. These were the guys that were creating a strategy. They were working hand in hand with operations and with sales. Everybody knew where they were, where we were trying to get to, and everybody felt really involved in that strategy. And I think moving forward, that's going to become even more important. And I think what we need to see is employers need to ensure that they've got the right talent and they keep the right talent within that organization, and they provide them with the right technology, because their revenue managers now need to be agile. They need to be flexible in their approach. They need to be highly strategic, and keeping that right talent and pairing that with the right revenue management system is going to enable hotels to come out of these tough times.
I completely agree. And I do think that there's a number of our regular sort of listeners or watchers that they'll be shouting at the screen saying, yes, definitely, we need more support. Yes, definitely, we need that tech in there. I think that sort of what you said resonates with a lot of points that are going on at the moment and a lot of very hot topics. The revenue management role, the expectations of a revenue manager are going to continue to just get broader and broader and broader. And with that becomes more responsibility, but obviously a heck of a lot of pressure. And without the support from their operational teams, without the support of their powers that be, if you like, they're going to struggle. And I think now more than ever, we need to be bolstering, we need to be supporting our revenue and wider commercial teams. So I completely agree with you from that point. What's been going on with Duetto, with regards to what you've been doing or with Duetto, during this really difficult, these unprecedented times? What's been going on over with you guys?
Well, I think that was one of the reasons that I wanted to join a technology business. I'm sure for other companies as well, but at Duetto, there is always something interesting going on. We have a really large development team that are constantly working on our product and our offering, and Duetto is native cloud. So we are rolling out new features all of the time to our customers. But we do have 3 main releases per year. And I think something that we've been focusing on even prior to COVID, but actually it's even more relevant now with the market conditions, is this concept of controlled automation. Here at Duetto, we are advocates of full automation, and we really do think that the ambition should always be to be on full automation. However, there are certain hotels and hotel groups that this just isn't going to work for. And particularly with the climate, the way that it is now, not having flexibility and having to be on full automation or full manual, that's just not acceptable at the moment. There needs to be more agility. So we've recently rolled out 2 new features that I'll just talk briefly about today, because I think they're really relevant and they both roll into this concept of controlled automation. The first one is enterprise rate guidelines, and the second one is autopilot schedule. And both of these not only create efficiency, but they add huge flexibility for the end user as well. So enterprise rate guidelines is the perfect tool for a cluster revenue manager or a hotel group operating multiple properties, because what it allows is for rate guidelines or complete strategies to be rolled out across a whole portfolio, a region, a specific brand, or even a city in minutes. So it's not only creating efficiencies and not having to go in and update individual systems to make sure that it's reflecting across all of the properties. This can be done at a centralized level. But what it's given you as well, it's giving you the agility. And we know that demand is very patchy at the moment. And if you're trying to stimulate, some really last minute demand with some really tactical promotions, you may want to put out, a 24-hour flash sale across one brand or one location, and you just don't have the time to do it. Potentially you don't have the resource at the moment. In enterprise rate guidelines, this can be done in just a few clicks. So I think it's something that's really relevant at the moment as well. And going back to autopilot schedule, this is exactly what I mentioned previously, giving you that complete flexibility. Instead of having autopilot on or off, you can set it how you want to. So if your pickup is very late and you want to take manual control over, the next 7-day booking window, because this is where you're going to have the most impact. This is where you can, really implement your strategy and focus all of the time that you've got. You can then set Duetto up to run on autopilot from 7 days out. So it's using its analytics, its pricing for you, and it frees up your time to really concentrate on the next 7-day period that's going to have the most impact on your business. And I think, just as kind of open pricing, which was created by Duetto, is now the kind of the benchmark pricing methodology in the industry, I think controlled automation will soon be that as well. And just as Duetto has always innovated, I think the focus for us now is that continual innovation as well.
It sounds like, as you said, the software businesses, everybody that I've spoken to so far, have all been incredibly busy throughout sort of the pandemic, I suppose, simply because there's this element or air of wanting to support their clients throughout and sort of put out that hand to say, look, we're here to help. And I know, with regards to Duetto, have they been active in that approach? Have they been there to support their people? What's your view on that?
Absolutely. We've made additional time from our customer success team to make sure hotels are getting the right support that they need. We've come up with guidelines on if properties were closing, how they should address this in the system at Duetto. We've come up with short-term forecasting rules, because obviously historical data is not going to be as relevant as it was previously. And obviously, if you're forecasting and pricing on historical data, your forecasts and your price are going to be all over the place in this current market. So yeah, absolutely. We've done stuff on the technology side and rolled out enhancements to help on that. But a thing that I think technology companies forget to talk about a lot is actually how important the people are. And, opening up our customer success team to all of our customers, giving them unlimited access to this team has been really crucial, because not only do our customer success team understand the Duetto system brilliantly, they're all ex-revenue managers, they're all ex-consultants or directors of revenue. So they've been in situations probably not similar to this, but situations where it's been tough, and they can really help hotels and our customers not only use the system but to build relevant strategies as well. And we haven't waited for people to come and ask us for support. We've been very proactive in this, and we actually set up something that I think that was really good. We actually set up a page on our website called Ask Duetto. And it was an anonymous page where people could ask a question specific to their business, and our people would go back to them with the answer. Whether that be around an RMS or revenue management or anything else. And I think that was something that we put out there that was really taken very well.
I think this is the important part, really, is businesses like yourself, my business, anybody that's in a, for the want of a better phrase, almost a sales function, providing a product or a service right now, is taking a step back and understanding, as you said, from almost a humanistic point of view, is that we need to be lending a hand rather than trying to make a sale. And I think that that's what's going to be remembered. I mean, from talking to my clients, it's certainly been recognized, but with you guys as well, that's what's going to be remembered when all this starts to calm down and things finding a new normal, the phrase that keeps bounding around at the moment. But that's what's going to be remembered, and people will come back. People will say, I remember how good you guys were. I remember how much you cared. I remember, you giving us that advice and all this sort of stuff. That's where your brand will then, I suppose, step up in terms of your clients and in terms of obviously building new relationships. So let's hope, obviously, when we do see the new normal, that Duetto is bigger and stronger and, I suppose, more clients than ever.
Yeah, and I think, Tom, as well, we've all got an individual responsibility there as well. This isn't just about, the companies that we work for or the companies that we work with. We've been in the industry a long time. We've got large networks. It's about supporting people, because people are going through really, really tough times now. They've been furloughed. They've been made redundant. The future looks very worrying for people. When are these jobs going to go back? And even if it's just checking in with people, how are you doing? Is there anything I can do? I think we all have a responsibility at this time to do that.
I couldn't agree with you more. What a brilliant note to sort of end it on, I think. Definitely, guys, if you're going to do anything and you're watching this episode right to the end, just do what you can to help everybody in our industry right now. Come together. I know it's obviously a big buzz thing right now, and it's almost a fashionable thing to say, but we are all in this together. And if we all work together and we're all there for each other, then we can get through to the other side. Let's see where we're at when we get to that place. Well, David, thank you so much for obviously joining us today. I know you're extremely busy at the moment, and I know obviously taking this time out of your schedule is certainly an ask. But thank you so much for joining us.
Tom, brilliant. Thank you for inviting me on. Great to have a chat.
Guys, please take a look who's on next week's episode now.